Right, Dominic, there's so many things I want to ask you, and I think just a conversation, just an informal conversation as we kind of, go through your life, your career, advice, yourself as a human being, this incredible, very calm person on Glow Up. I mean, I don't know how much is edited out. Yeah, it's that ability to speak from, speak from the gut, but very calmly, keeping tempers and tears down, because those kids are under incredible stress, aren't they? Where did you learn to do that?
That's a really good question. I learned it from years of assisting other makeup artists and seeing the good and the ugly. I learned from Val how to encourage and how to uplift a team to get the best out of them, because that's how she works. But I've also seen I also got that from another makeup artist I assisted, Hannah Murray and Sally Brunker as well. They both were very much about enabling the individual to get the best out of them. But at the same time, I've worked with some absolute horrors who they probably don't realize that they're actually that bad, because they don't know any other way. But I think when you see sort of the opposite to a great sort of leader, you learn what not to do. Some people will just copy, and that sort of behavior pattern just continues. It's like this trauma that travels through the generations. But I think I learned from Hannah in particular to acknowledge sort of a trait and understand how to break it down and whether you want to keep it or not. And so I think one of my biggest sort of compliments I ever got was working on a show last year in Milan, and I was, I did the demo. I explained how it was a very specific eye shape, eyeliner, that was representing the sort of almost Minnie Mouse shoes. So the shape was very, very specific. And I knew that it was going to be a challenge to make sure that all the eyes had the same shape that fitted that model. So there was a lot of sort of things to take into consideration. So I did the demo, did the makeup, and I always sort of in my mind, I always aim to get all the looks done by the run through, because I think if you get all the makeup done by run through, then all you need to do is tweak, and the stylist will also then go, oh my God, everyone's done. This looks amazing. And there's not that panic of, oh my God, we've still got girls to do. So I do that. But by doing that, you're controlling the environment, you're controlling the space, and you're empowering and sort of supporting these artists trying to recreate. And at the end, a couple of them came up to me, a couple of the artists came up to me and said just how much they enjoyed the show, how much they enjoyed the backstage, how calm everything was. And, just said that this was like their favorite show that they've ever worked on. And that's what I want, because I love Fashion Week. I love working in this collaborative way with other makeup artists. And so for someone to then say, I got so much out of this one moment, thank you so much. And that is the biggest compliment. Whether Vogue Runway post makeup and talk about it or not. It doesn't matter. It's like, you know, I've done it justice.
Yeah, and you've used the C word there, collaborative or collaborate, haven't you? Because it is the most important thing, and it's very interesting watching Glow Up. I mean, years ago, collaboration was not a thing, and at all, you know. And what I want to go on to ask you, and so remind me if I forget, is about, you know, what I see, it's the applying of art, sense of being an artist with what you're doing, and that ability. There's one bit where I can't remember, it was doing the red eyeshadow for the Rankin shoot for Hunger, and you go, this is going to be really difficult. This is really difficult. And Rankin, you know, you've got to really be able to do that. And I'm sitting there going, no, I know you've got to have such a powerful eye that you can see the slightest imbalance. No asymmetry in this one, thank you. But that's the eye of an artist, you see. And when what is lovely about what we see is your ability to collaborate, you and Val, and teach and bring out the kids together, working together, is that, you know, you say collaboration is essential in this industry. Did it take you a long time to learn how to do that as what I would call an artist, which I believe is what you are? Lots of people aren't. Lots of people think they are, but how long did it take you to learn that?
I don't know if I did learn it. I just think because I came from a fine art background, my thought process was always on the final image, not the makeup. And so when I went from being a solo artist to then being a makeup artist, working with a stylist, photographer, you know, hairstylist, nail technician, it was very much, I knew that it wasn't about my makeup. I knew that it was about the final look. So how do you get to the final look if you're not communicating, being respectful, but also being responsive, and also sometimes almost owning the journey to the final look with other people. You have to work with other people to get this final image done. That, you know, you see so many times a shoot that, you know, the hairstylist has literally just bulldozed in and created something, and everyone else has just literally had to stand back and let this person take over, and it doesn't work because everyone has to be a part of the conversation. So it is very much a collaboration. You're definitely right with that. But I don't think it was something I learned. I think it was just something maybe was more inherent, because I knew that it was the final image that's the reason why we're here. And I think a lot of makeup artists, when I work with sort of young and new up and coming makeup artists, I try my hardest to really enforce this idea that this makeup that you're doing at this moment is not important. It's just not important, because it's the next one you do is the one that's important. So stop giving every ounce of your being to this one look, because tomorrow you've got to do something else. So if you give everything to this one look, you are drained and you're empty, and you can't continue.
I agree with you. I think that learning to reserve energy is essential on every level. I mean, there's a lot, you Faffy McFaffy. A couple of
really love a faffer, because it's like, oh, just get on with it.
You know, it's like, do it.
Yeah, I've done makeup. I have done makeup that's taken me sort of 2 hours to accomplish, but I've also done makeup that I've done in 15 seconds. You know, and it's about sort of understanding the need of what is needed from you. Then there is this idea that I think when you first start out in the creative industry, because I talk about the fact that you you are a creator, you're an artist. And unlike doing something like accounting, which the sum is either right or it's wrong, it's black and white. Whereas art is very subjective to the viewer of that. And so you are putting something out there and someone is either going to like it or they're not. So there is a very, there is this anxiety that comes with being a creator. But at the same time, there's also this idea that you have to prove yourself every single time. You have to prove the reason why I'm here is because I can do this. And actually, you don't need to do this. Sometimes to prove you are who you are, you actually have to hold it in and not give everything, you know, because the only person you're proving it to is yourself, and you shouldn't need to do that. You should have the confidence to believe in your own ability, and that will prevent you from having to feel like you're fighting every minute to prove who you are and why you deserve to be here. You deserve to be here because you're creative.
Yeah.
You know that. Now just get on and do the job. And because of that mentality of trying to prove yourself, that's where faffing comes in. That's when panic comes in. And that's when the over-labored 15, 35, 100 eyeshadow palette comes out and they use everything in the box. You don't need to. You know, you just need to do your job and you know, present your idea in a really simplistic way.
And we'll come back to a bit of that in a minute, but you know, I'm really interested in how you started out. I know that you lived in Switzerland. You're senior global artist for MAC, which is really important. I'm sure this stuff will come up at the beginning, but there you are. You're a young guy. You're at school. You're gay. You know, and being shat on probably, and then to stick up for yourself. You know, and all of that horror. The absolute horror and the fascination, which of course you don't realize when you're that age, of being the outsider is of course a really good place to be. You know, it's the exciting place to be, but of course when you're young and vulnerable, it's different. And then you go to so you're in Switzerland and you see the face, and it's a cover styled by Judy Blame.
Yeah.
Which picture was it? Which issue? Can you remember?
Oh, I have tried to find it, but it's so difficult to find it. But it was of a male model. It was very sort of a face that was almost quite greased up, and there was a zip just going down the center of his face, but it kind of unzipped around the nose. And I'd never seen anything like it. And you know, I was living in Switzerland. I lived in a very small town mentality in the UK. But I was very fortunate being the youngest of three kids, the youngest of three sons as well. So I think my mum had literally, by the time I got to the age where I could go out and do stuff, it was like, just do whatever you want. You know, there was very much that sort of, you know, my brother paved the way for everyone else to sort of be able to do whatever they wanted. So I was quite lucky in the sense that I was always up in London. Any half term, any sort of actually during school time, like on a Tuesday afternoon, we had double science. So I very often jump on the train and go up to London, go to Kensington Market and Camden, back in the day before it became commercial, and go to there was a big Doc Martin store in Covent Garden, and just, you know, just used to sort of, I would find my tribe on like day trips. So I always knew that there was more out in the world. But it was when I moved to Switzerland, I remember very clearly, I was very upset. You know, you're 16, you don't want to leave your friends, you don't want to leave your home. But I moved to Switzerland, and after a couple of months, we had to come back for for some family get together. So I came home and I went and met up with my friends. And I remember very clearly thinking to myself, I'm never going to see you again, because in that short couple of months, I'd moved very, very far from where they were. They were still in this very small town idea. And I had, you know, okay, it was only Switzerland and it was only, you know, the late 90s, but I had gone so much further in that very short time. And I never did see them again. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but, you know, I knew my life was going to go in a very, very different direction. And so I was living in Switzerland, and back in the sort of, you know, this was like 95, 96. And there was, you know, there was no satellite TV. There was no, you know, Wi-Fi. There was no, you know, internet. We had a TV channel called BBC Prime that played English language programs from 7 o'clock until 10 o'clock. And that was it. And so when I walked past, the reason why I say this is because magazines became this real important piece of media, because there was no access to anything other than this one newsagents in the train station that had international magazines. And it had the face, and why it had the face, I have no idea. You know, it's not something that you would consider a popular magazine that was going to be, you know, bought by every sort of Swiss housewife up and down the country. No, but there was this face magazine, and this one face just stood out, this really handsome man with this zip coming down his face, and I had to have it. So I bought it. It was horrendously marked up, but I had to have it, and I really saw that as quite a moment in my development, to know that I wanted to get into a visual art world. And it was then sort of, as any sort of young creative, you start digesting it and breaking it down. So I spent a long time trying to redo that image in different ways, learning sort of mistakes and challenges and finding my voice. So that one Judy Blame visual was, and what was really actually wearing this is a jumper by Sibling. And
I know Sibling, of course. That's of course. Yes, yeah. Fantastic. And Joe. Wonderful. Yeah.
They're just lovely. The best. I truly, and I met them through Mac. I was asked to go and sort of do I think I keyed a menswear show, but I really got on with them, and still do. And you know, whenever we see each other in sort of different times, you know, we always have a good catch up and stuff. And but I was on a show with them, but I wasn't keying it. I was sort of just assisting, and Judy was there, and it was I've never got so starstruck before. But when I saw, I just couldn't talk. I was just so sort of like, oh my God, I don't know how to communicate just how important you are to me. And it was, amazing.
Yeah, and Judy was always his own person.
Yeah,
absolutely always. And the last time I saw him, it was very early on in photographer Campbell Addy's career. He'd been out of St Martin's for a year, and he had a show of his new magazine, and it was in the East End. And it was just, I love Campbell, so it was really good to be there. And who should be there also kind of sipping water but Judy. He just looked at me and said, we always see each other at these places, don't we, Judith? I said, yeah. He said, I would rather be here with people doing this than all of the fashion's top 700, you know. Yeah. And that he was a doer.
Yeah.
Judy was a doer. It was hands-on, just, excuse me, stop the faffing, stop the white noise. I need to get on with thinking and making. He was so impressive, wasn't he? And just so incredibly original. He got his name because he had eyes like Judy Garland. Anthony Price called him Judy at Heaven one night or something. He said, "Oh, hello, Judy." And it's his wonderful eyes, if you think about those eyes.
Yeah.
But it's a language that you either get or you don't. And theorists can try and code it and contextualize it. But it is that thing about, not sitting at the front, in the front row. It's standing at the back because you're part of the team, or being backstage. It's that is so important. I think it gets lost a lot now in discussions of fashion, aspiring fashion media. I've got to be on the front row. I have to be. I'm going to be to every party and every show, and that will be fantastic. And what I love about when McQueen did Voss was to put the mirrors for a long time, and there could be a lot more introspection going on, couldn't there?
Yeah.
Right now. And I think that was what was lovely about Judy and all these makers and doers, is that they knew it was just media noise, and it was aspiration, etc. And I always say to my students, it's not sitting in the front row, it's standing at the back. Those are the people that matter. And the most important person is the designer, which it's when they're good, like McQueen, it's another experience, isn't it? I mean, it lifts you to another level. And that surely, when you're on Glow Up and you're talking what you do with Mac, it's about transformation, isn't it? It is about and that seems to me to be so important to so many people who, when they're young, don't know that they're going to end up in the creative industries. And they're not observing it, they're part of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that is an interesting thing that's happened with makeup. If you look on the internet, Instagram, etc., I'm trying this product is really, really great. It's great, and you just think, and I'm just waiting for the journalists to come along who actually do an investigation on that. Whereas you have somebody like yourself or Val, and you can tell that you're actually living it and you're doing it, and you're helping people find a path to that transformation, which so many souls seem to need, don't they? It's universal.
Yeah, I think I remember years and years and years ago when I first felt like I wanted to get into makeup as a career. I was working because I went through a bit of a stage where I didn't know where I wanted to go. I knew it was going to be the arts. Where, so sorry, right. 2 seconds.
Get the cat to answer it.
I'll try. I'm so sorry.
Right.
It's the world of, it's probably one of those products that people want me to go, look at what I'm using, this is amazing. Because I tell you, I get so much. Anyway, so what was I going to say? I might need to just,
it's all right.
Need signing. So what I was saying, I've lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
When you started, when you
yes, right, that's it. So yeah, when I started, I knew I wanted to get into the creative industries. Didn't know where I wanted to go. I somehow, don't ask me how, I got a place at London College of Fashion doing menswear.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, dying to ask. Go, keep going. Not
So,
about the LCF, but why
yeah.
you did that. But keep going. Yes.
So I had it, and then after about sort of, God, it was coming up to actually having to go to college. And I suddenly just thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. And luckily I did it, and I said, I'm not going, because I thought it was very easy to get caught in the rut and just kind of go with the flow, but I couldn't, I didn't want to do it. But I wasn't silly enough to say I'm not going to do it. Oh, so sorry. Oh, cheers, thank you. Oh, apparently needed a photograph to prove that I've got it.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, sorry. So
yeah.
So I went, I stuck to my guns and I said, I'm not going to go. But I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to say I'm never going to go. So I kind of put it on the back burner for a couple of years. But I went to, I got a job at Body Shop, because my mum told me, basically, don't come home until you've got a job. If you're not going to go to college and you need a job, and you don't come back until you get a job. So I got a job at the Body Shop because it was Christmas temp.
Was this in London?
No, this was in my hometown. So I'd gone from being in my hometown, moved to Switzerland, did a year at Farnham,
yeah, West
Farnham Art School.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that? You did.
I loved it.
There?
Oh my God, I loved it.
A very good place, you know. It's really good.
It was amazing, because it just felt like it just felt safe. It felt like I could just do, because I think the thing is, a lot of the time at college, you're not there to create sort of work that is professional standard. You're there to find your feet and find your niche and find your voice and make mistakes in a safe environment that won't matter if you do. Because if you make a mistake in the real world, you may never work again. But if you make a mistake in a safe environment, then the people around you know that you're learning to walk, so you may trip up. And that's what I felt when I went there. And it opened my eyes to a lot of different opportunities, which is where fashion design came. And that's also, but it's also where makeup started to play a role, because I was doing a lot of photography work and using makeup in photography on my friends, and then sort of using exposure to sort of bleach things out and change things around, and like trying to feel it out. So I kind of found makeup as a medium within photography.
What moment can you remember when you first picked up, I don't know, an eyeline or a mascara or obviously lipstick? Can you remember that first moment? Was it on yourself, or was it in a shoot?
It was on, I don't know if it was on myself, but I was very young. I must have been about 8 or 9, and I watched Blade Runner, as every 8 or 9-year-old does. And I had no idea what was going on in the movie. I had no idea what's going on. I still actually don't really know what's going on. But Daryl Hannah sprayed black across her eyes. And I remember just freezing and seeing that and thinking, oh my days, this is amazing. And I would nick my mum's Chanel eyeshadow quad with the darkest color she had was like a navy blue, and anyone that I could, I would paint this navy blue shadow across their eyes like Daryl Hannah did in Blade Runner.
Wow.
And I remember doing that. And I remember my family just letting me do it. You know, my 2 older brothers and my dad and my mum. And my mum's a makeup wearer. She loves makeup, and she really sort of she's very much in that 80s mindset of more is more. So she really does. I would watch her put makeup on a lot. So makeup's always been in the back of my subconscious really for a long time. And then like I said, I got a part-time job at Body Shop, and they had a makeup range, and I found the transition between actually being a fine artist and painting, and my knowledge of color theory and placement and proportions. I found it a really easy transition to go into makeup. Like everything's the same. It's literally just a different formula. So, but I was always sort of, I knew I wanted more. So I worked with a local hairdressers, and they were doing a photo shoot, and they said, would you like to come with us? We're not going to ask you to do makeup because I wasn't very good, but we've got a makeup artist, and we want to, and you can come with us, and you can then sit with the makeup artist, watch and ask questions and things like that. So I did, and it was amazing. I saw this photo shoot going on. I felt like it was like I got the tingles of, oh my God, I'm part of something amazing. I'm seeing creativity and collaboration happening as I watch. But the makeup artist was so mean, so mean, wouldn't answer any questions. Anything I tried to sort of ask her, she just would shun it away, or tell me I need to figure it out myself. She would hide products so I couldn't see what she was using, because I feel like, and they're still somewhat around, but definitely back then there was this idea that you have to protect your intellectual property. I'm not going to show you what I do because I don't want you to steal my ideas. And I found it so, I thought it was so bizarre that would happen. So I'm like the first one, I will tell you everything. I'll tell you every secret. I'll tell you every mix that I've ever done, because I don't see the point in keeping it to myself, because what's the point? Like, how does that help the world if we just maintain ourselves like this? Absolutely. We have to let it out. We have to share. We have to share ideas. And so that moment was the part where I was like, I'm never going to be like that. I'm always going to tell you. I'm always going to say what I'm doing. And so when working with younger makeup artists, new artists, and especially on the show, what I love so much is that we are sharing so much knowledge, right. And we're passing on, like the feedback we give. The show may show like a minute or two, but sometimes it can go on for about half an hour, because we're really breaking things down and explaining how, so that those artists can then come back and learn from that moment. My job is not to just create. My job is also to ensure that when my time has come, there is a whole nother group of people behind me that are going to maintain this it's very world.
Interesting, because it puts you in the class of a very good educator.
Thank you.
Being a very good educator is ensuring that something is handed on and it will go on into the future, and that you are enabling people, I think, to find themselves, actually.
Yeah.
That find yourself. So I mean, that's really good that you do that. There must be a legacy. I mean, the tragedies when there aren't legacies.
Well, that's the thing. It's like my being here is not self-serving. I didn't just wake up, started putting makeup on people and creating whatever. I'm part of a journey. I'm part of the zeitgeist that is, that is carrying it from. And I know this sounds probably really cliche, but I'm carrying it from the creators before me. The Kevin Aquans and the I don't, just those that there's a whole legacy of visual creators that as an artist, you digest not just makeup, you digest all areas of art and design, and that is all in my brain, and it's in my fingers, and it's important that it goes through my eyes, it goes out my fingers to then go into someone else's eyes, and there has to be this continuing flow of creativity. That's what artists are. We are like the pulse within society. We carry the heartbeat of what the world is thinking and feeling, and we visualize it. And I am one of those creators amongst millions that are also doing exactly the same thing. But it's important for me to make sure that I get it out and into other people.
You're passing on your DNA, aren't you?
That's it.
Dominic.
Passing on the DNA.
That's what it is. And I know we haven't got much time, so I don't want to digress into the government's filthy policy of STEM, whatever STEM, you know, what is it? It's science, technology, engineering, and maths. I think that's what it is, but it's a STEM load of rubbish. Where at school, at straight schools, you know, arts are being discouraged. I mean, can you imagine what that's going to do to the psyches of millions of kids?
Yeah.
To be told that they have to do maths.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that? No.
No, I can imagine it, because it happened to me. You know, I was at school and all I wanted to do was art. And I wanted to do, luckily when I went to an American school in Switzerland, when I lived in Switzerland, and you know, it was very much, you need to do science, maths. I was doing algebra. Well, I don't know what that is. And I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I've done this already until my GCSEs. Now I want to do what I want to do. I've given you that, and now give me this. And they wouldn't. And so my mum, bless her, she kind of went down the school as a good old British mum, like, and all of a sudden, my schedule completely freed up, and I could do what I want. And I was able to do photography and ceramics and drawing and painting and sculpture, and I wanted to do costume design, so they let me do the costumes for things, and it's almost as if art will find a way. Artists and young people will find a way to create. You cannot contain creativity. It will explode. And it's the shortcomings of a very privileged few that become the government.
Yep. That
believe that what they are into is what the world should be into, and you know, I mean, not that I want to get political, but there is this very interesting thought that you would say, why is politics not taught in secondary schools? Why is it not taught the way it's taught at Eton? Well, the reason being is because the people that create the syllabus, that, you know, from the government, that say what everyone should teach, they don't want sort of an everyday secondary school in the middle of Bradford to learn politics, because they don't want those people to get into politics. They want to keep it for the select few within certain schools. So those schools create the future, and it's just this cycle, and the rest of the world is kept on the sidelines. So
it's also with history, Dominic.
Yeah.
You don't make, because that's my background. If you don't know history, and these people who need to learn to teach history, so people just can't wait to get more, because if you understand it, and that's, you know, I mean, certainly history of makeup and history of fashion is the history of you know, people. You're not going to be able to be critical of the present. You know, this, and you're absolutely right. It is about the ruling class. And I, you know, I'm older than you are. I would, you know, I mean, 30 years ago, none of us would ever have believed that this was possible.
No.
Ever this level of repression and kind of the rise of of the privately educated. And to the detriment of state education. It's so horrific.
Well, and I think the thing is, what it makes you do is it makes you can do one of two things. You can either sit back and just allow it to happen, or you don't. And so, like, I'm really excited because I've been asked to join the advisory board on the British Beauty Council.
Brilliant.
And I already had a conversation about the imbalance of gender within the business of beauty.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
Well, it's just the fact that the government don't see beauty as anything other than fluffy, and
i.e. female.
Because it doesn't necessarily affect
cliche. Yeah.
Well, and it's like, well, actually, let's break this down a little bit. Why doesn't it affect you? Well, because the government is made up of, I think when I worked it out last, it was something like 80% male. But the world is 51% female and 49% male. So already you've got an overbalance of gender within a government position. So if you're talking about a government that is for the people, well, it should represent the people. So it should represent only 49% male and 51% female. It should. And therefore, the government, being 51% female, would see beauty as a necessity, because it's not just something like the second or the third biggest industry within the UK. It's also the biggest employer of females, and it's the biggest employer of females with low education and low opportunity. So you are talking about a group that is actually the majority being treated like a minority and being sort of underrepresented, under acknowledged, and they are entrepreneurial. They are building with little opportunity, little resources, and little education. They are building businesses that are then employing other female and ethnic minority females in particular, who also don't have a lot of education opportunities. So you're talking about an industry that is actually incredibly important for the well-being of the majority of this world. And yet somehow, because the government is made up of 80% male, they won't see it as anything other than frivolous. And I think it's shocking. But the thing is, what do you do about it? Do you sit back and allow it to happen, or do you put your foot in the door and you say, oh, hang on a minute, I need you to think about this?
Yeah.
And so that's why I and I'm also very aware that makeup and beauty is a huge industry, but it's also an industry designed for the few majoritively white upper class privileged few that can afford these extortionate prices of private tuition. But that's not going to help the world if we're sort of allowing sort of that cycle. We need to break it down. So I'm working with an amazing makeup artist who's created this organization called Incredible Brilliant Youth that is working on giving free makeup courses to what would be the technical word? I can't remember what she says now. Oh God, my mind's gone blank.
People have been sidelined.
So yeah.
Through colour, etc.
Ethnic minorities and low-income families. Because they want to get into beauty, but they can't afford them. They can't afford the fees. So she puts on these free training courses, and the lives that changed because of this 6-week course, they're amazing.
Well, it means that people will actually be able to earn a living.
Yeah,
it's life-changing. I agree.
Yeah, and it can't just be an industry for for white people. It has to,
No, I
it has to
agree.
be broken down.
I mean, and you know, and it's hilarious, isn't it, that it's viewed as being that. If you think of all these incredible stars that we have at the moment, and historically these incredible women, you know, of color, yeah, who are just seismically fabulous, and you know, it's an industry for white people. I mean, it is just completely absurd, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And but I think because of being, you know, if I'm completely honest, I am white, and I am upper middle class, and I am I'm a homosexual. I literally, the red carpet is laid out for me in the beauty world. You know, I'm literally everything they want. But because of that, I have to be aware of that privilege, but I also have to then use that privilege to enable change. Because I can't just sit on my laurels and just say, well, it's fine for me, so everyone's happy. It's like, no, it's not. It's not acceptable. And so, you know, I'm in a position where I can make change, and I feel really quite proud of the changes that I helped.
Everyone who can must help make these changes, because I just want to briefly touch on the fact that it was only really, you know, in about 1800 or, you know, 1795 that men stopped wearing makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm talking, yes, we're not even talking about the rest of the world, you know, have been having a fabulous time, thank you very much, understanding about beautifying and decorating and being really incredibly proud of it. You know, we're talking about just the Western model, but it's only, you know, up until and after the French Revolution that it stopped, you know, it stopped. Before that, there it was. There are so many examples of it. And isn't it interesting that people then felt you could turn it off like a tap, that the societal change was so profound, you know, in terms of middle class values, money, Protestantism, you know, the self-made manism, you know, and the ideas of masculinity, you know, etc., you know, let alone the idea of women wearing makeup just meant they were harlots, etc., you know, but it was so recent that all men were wearing, you know, it was completely acceptable.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
we haven't even got onto the wigs.
Well, the thing, you know what it is, because it's all about the overbearing dominance of what I see is a minority, which is white cisgendered males. They are the minority, but for somehow, some way, we have, I mean, you'll know more because of your knowledge of history, and I don't know much about history, but what I do know is that somehow the world has allowed this dominance of white cisgendered males to overbear their ideology onto the world and suppress the majority. They suppress, LGBTQIA plus. Yep. They suppress females. They suppress anyone who isn't the same color as them.
Yep.
And we have all just sat back and allowed it to happen. And I kind of find sometimes this is the you know, I am a liberal, but the difficulty of being a liberal is that we want to, you know, when a decision has to be made as a liberal, we spend the time running around making sure everyone's happy with the right answer. Yeah. Meanwhile, someone who isn't a liberal has turned around and just said, I've got the answer and this is what it is. And they've made the decision. And we were like, oh no, but wait, we've discussed it. And it's like too late. And so it is that sort of, you know, this thing that's kind of happened, and I'm all about breaking the patriarchy. Like anything I can do to sort of get rid of this male oppression is
it's such a bore, isn't it? Having to
it's
listen
just
to it.
Painful.
God, absolutely having to listen to mansplaining.
Yeah.
At my age. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, no, I do.
Having a laugh. And they're standing there and they're explaining stuff to you. Meantime, you've already worked, you know what, you know the answer to it already, but you have to, you're standing there going, Yes.
Mhm,
Mm, mm.
mhm.
And already you've worked out, you've got to walk the dogs, get some coffee,
Yeah.
mark some work, write an email, sort out moving the house. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I
And
totally,
still telling you. And then
yeah,
like you don't know.
I know.
Because we've
But
already fucking worked it out.
yeah, but this is the thing. It's like, you know, as a male, being aware of that allows me to I see it.
Yes.
I just see it, and I see the frustration, but I also call it out. I
Good.
call it out, and I will make a point of saying it, because, you know, I got on a bit of a an Instagram rant between myself and a couple of people. Yeah, because I I said controversially that white cisgendered males should be seen as as a terrorist organization.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, the response is of, well, it's not all men. And I'm just like, oh, I am done. I am done. It is all men. It is all men. If you don't, you know, I said in one response, I said, if you have never called out a friend of yours who you know is at home causing domestic violence or leching over a female who's in a vulnerable situation, if you have never called that out, then you are part of the problem. And then the response was, I have never seen that in my life. And I was like, well, then you are the part of the problem, because it's happened, but you don't see it. And I see it as, and I, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, but I do see it as it's a responsibility of mine to try and make it as clear as I can for men to understand where women are coming from, because it's like, they're not going to listen to women.
No,
they're not going to
no, they're not. They're absolutely not. I can tell you that right now. They're not.
Yeah. We've gone right off track, but I love it.
I don't, it's that, you know, it's like, you know, covering Boadicea covering herself in woad, isn't it? And leading all her, you know, fantastic troops to take on the poxy Romans, you know. It's just like, it's wild, you know. And I think a lot of this, what we're talking about, and we're talking about men in suits, and that is a cliche, but if you think about what happened in 1789 in the French Revolution, where everything was turned upside down, that is when men started wearing suits. That is where they did, and they stopped powdering their hair, they stopped putting, you know, wearing wigs, and it was very much a kind of masculine totem. It really was, and that is when it started. I mean, it's always been around, and there's always been that kind of, you know, turning things upside down, etc. But that is essentially, in our culture, is when it started. And well, it's so, and what's interesting about makeup and fashion, if you think about the great fashion designers, I mean, the actual greats, of which there are very few, they're turning things upside down. They're picking up on the zeitgeist. They're understanding the undercurrent that is going on. They're feeling it. And you know, a lot of what you've taught, when you talked at the beginning, it's about you being intuitive. I mean, I can see that, and I can see it with Val. I can see, you know, and it's a really good thing, because you're feeling stuff before anyone verbalizes it, aren't you? You can look at their faces, you know.
And I think about that, but that's the beauty of the fashion industry, is, you know, and Fashion Week, and I always try and encourage every makeup artist, even the makeup artists that I work with, you know, on movies and TV, who aren't in fashion, as they kind of, you know, there's definitely this sort of split sometimes. There's TV and film makeup artists, and there's fashion makeup artists. It's like, it's all the fucking same. It's all the same. It's just, the more you can diversify in your skill set, the more jobs you can do. And so I try and encourage all makeup artists to work backstage at Fashion Week at some point. You know, I love it, because I know that I am subconsciously picking up like a sponge. I'm soaking up all these ideas and these thoughts and these impressions from all these different creators, and it's coming into me. And then after Fashion Week, it all just splurges out in a new mix. And
Right.
it's really important, because if you don't, and we all know those makeup artists that don't do Fashion Week, they become stagnant and they don't move on, and they end up doing the same thing over and over. And they, you know, they can be successful doing that, but are they really moving the peg? And it's, you know, you're as an artist, you need to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because if you don't, everything will just cease. So, you know, it's important to be surrounded by, you know, all types of creativity, which I find as a, you know, when I work with young makeup artists, a lot of their creative creativity comes from Instagram, and you know, which can be a great place for creativity, but it can also be a place where an algorithm is showing you things that you like, so it will show you the same things repeatedly and will not show you anything alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
and so therefore you get stuck in a rut. So as much as you should embrace technology and utilize things in the palm of your hand like Instagram, you also need to get into a gallery. You need to get into an art gallery. You need to go shopping, like not even shopping. Like I will, instead of going to a gallery, sometimes I will just walk around Harrods.
Yeah.
Because it's a gallery. It's a gallery of design and color and creativity and craftsmanship. And it's incredible. You come out feeling reborn, you know, and that's what it's about.
I do think it's been very difficult with the pandemic, particularly for youngsters and students and everything, not being able to do that. But, you know, it's, I mean, on every level, but I completely agree with you. It's not about looking on Instagram. It's about looking not on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, and not on Pinterest.
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee, because of what I my own area, as it were, as a fashion historian, you know, as well as a writer, is that the references are shrinking.
Yeah.
They're shrinking all the time. All the time. And that is scary. Whereas in fact, you basically need to go and look at a tree.
Yeah.
You know, you need to go look at some bark, mate. Do you know what I mean? Or you need to go,
so true.
You know, just take yourself out of that, or read something, or look at books, look at pictures in books if you can't go to, but bloody books, you know.
Yeah. I still buy books. I still buy books, and I love books. And because I you know, you could ask a classroom of, and I'm not saying, and this is quite generalizing, because there is always that one or two students who understand that it's more than just going on Google, and they're the ones that will just naturally make it. But it's the other people that don't, that are the ones that are going to get stuck. And so it's really important to sort of make them understand that yes, you can put into Google Marilyn Monroe, but you will all come out with exactly the same photo, because a computer program has decided this is the photo that you are going to look at. The program is not going to go, oh, there's 27 people in this one area that's all looking for Marilyn Monroe, so let's give them 27 different pictures. They're not going to do that. So you will all end up with the same photo. So it's really important to not do that, and to actually go and have a look at a book. Go to a library and look at a book, and look at images of Marilyn Monroe, because you will find things that someone else hasn't, and that will make you different, and that will make you a success.
I completely agree. And before we finish, because we've obviously spoken much more than I think, I think it's brilliant, but we better wrap it up because I know you're busy. just to go back, by the way, that last point, you've absolutely completely agree with you. I just keep saying library, books, library, books, you have to look and you have to read. Designers, you're in there, you're working in fashion weeks and everything, and they are making their money out of makeup lines.
Yeah.
Aren't they? And you're thinking about, when we think Incredible Brilliant Youth, that organization.
Yeah.
Are they giving you that organization any money from all the money that they make out of lipsticks, concealers, whatever? Sorry.
Don't worry. Go on, no, it's fine.
It's my sister ringing my mother. Sorry. Right, okay. Are they, what, think about, I don't know, Dior, LVMH, Kering, all of these people who make fortunes out of selling branded cosmetics to the East.
Yeah.
How much money are they giving people?
I don't know if I'm.
No,
that's
don't
the thing.
expect you to know.
No, but no, I know, and I think that, well, that's why. I mean, and I don't want this to be a sort of a big Mac.
No,
Mac moment. But
sorry, of course that puts you on the spot.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. But what I do want to say is, working for Mac and being in the position that I have at Mac, I have the ability, the privilege to change things. For instance, I'm really proud of the fact that I have been able to change every other floor in the ELC company building, Estee Lauder Company's building in London. Every other floor had 2 female toilets, and I have fought to get one of those toilets turned into gender equal. So on every other floor, there's gender equal toilets, which means on the other floors, there is a men's and a women's. So I am in a position where I can make change. And so having this connection with Teresa at Incredible Brilliant Youth, I know that in the UK, Mac put a lot of money into supporting her, but not just supporting her, but also providing makeup kits for all the students, and giving myself and Terry Barber and other people within the business to sort of help to develop their education, which is, it's great for me. It's great because I think it's very easy for any brand to just sign a check for £1 million. There you go, here, have that. What is it doing? Where is it going? How is it affecting people? And I'm sure it is affecting people, but we don't have that money. But what we do have is, we have some money, but we also have resources, and we can physically see and make a difference. And that's the important thing. It's not about the amount of money that you have to give. It's about the amount of time and energy and just moment that you can have. Anyone can do that, no matter who you are. Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much, Dominic. Pleasure. You've done it. I love this, honestly. You want to do it again, give me a shout. I do. I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. Yeah, there's lots of thoughts there. And well done. Thank you so much. That's really, it's so uplifting and exciting. Pleasure. Honestly, I've loved every moment of this. It's been wonderful meeting you. Okay, and you. All right.